No idea what you're going to hear tonight either. And I'll have to apologize about my voice. This disease is... Am I not loud enough? Oh, dear. This disease is very powerful. Do you think it might want to take away my voice so I can't tell my story? My name is Peggy, and I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank the committee for inviting me. I have had so much fun already. And after this is over with, I'm going to have even more fun. I had two wonderful ladies pick me up at the airport, Carmen and English Jan. And they took me to see the beach and the pier, and we went out to dinner. We had a lovely time. You people really know how to treat your visitors. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. My story started in Chicago, Illinois, where I was born. And that was in 1948. And when I was 3 and my sister was 2, my parents divorced. And I have no recollection whatsoever of my mother. Excuse me. And I drank over that for a very long time. My father got custody of us 2 little girls, which I think was pretty weird. Even now, it's very strange for a man to get custody of his children, but my mother was a very short little person, and she didn't have any power, I guess, over my father and his family. Keep in mind, the story that I was told was that she left. She left 2 little girls, and I thought, oh, how could she leave me? And my father really didn't want us. He just took us because I think his parents forced him into doing so. And he just found places for us to live. Foster homes, but not legally foster homes. Just, friends, relatives, a couple in church one time. I was so pissed. I mean, I spent my whole childhood, thank you, pissed off. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot of tricks: lying, cheating, how to get attention from boys, how to get on in this life to get the attention that I felt I should have, that I didn't get. Now, there were really some wonderful people that I lived with, and they could only take usually one of us because they didn't have room for 2. So my sister and I really only lived together about 4 years is all I can remember that we really were together because people could only take one. So if anybody in here is a foster parent, my hat goes off to you because I don't know what I would have done without those people. My father promised to pay them so much a week, but he didn't pay them. And I think that's why we had to leave every time school was out. So I figured out I went to about 12 grade schools and about 6 high schools. So I really didn't feel like I belonged or I fit in. Because I really didn't. But like I said, I found out how to get attention. And I found out how to feel better. And of course, alcohol was the thing. I really can't even tell you when I took my first drink. I don't really remember. There's a lot of things that I think that I blacked out or I've just lost all memory of them. I tell people I lived here and I lived there, but I can't remember exactly where. I remember looking at Wrigley Field, and I lived near there one time, but I couldn't tell you where exactly. I just blacked out a lot of things. I know I lived with a family that he was a truck driver. And I've gone back and visited some of the families that I lived with, and they were so happy to see me. I guess they thought I would be locked up somewhere because I was a crazy child. I was very, very angry. And I spent most of my life very, very angry. But I learned how to hide it under a bottle, with a bottle. And there was a time I was trying to find my mother just to see. I think every child wants to know her mother. My father was around, but not very much. I used to sit by the window where I was living at the time and wait for him to come. But he just never came. And then when he did come, he'd be like, "You've been a bad little girl." I'd be like, "Who are you?" And that's been my attitude towards men ever since, I think. And I've heard a lot of women tell their stories about their childhoods, and I can't help but think that it has a lot to do with who we are today, or how, what course in life we took. But I tried to find my mother and I couldn't. I'm going to tell you something a little more about that in a minute or two. But I went through school, just doing the best I could, very angry, very jealous. Oh my God, I was so jealous of all the girls. Just like here, I'm so jealous of all these beautiful women with these beautiful clothes and jewelry. Not really, I'm just saying. I do love all the beautiful clothes and jewelry, but I grew up asking you to borrow something because I didn't have any clothes or jewelry. And a few years back, I looked and I had 120 pairs of shoes. I said, "This is ridiculous." So I gave most of them away. But, I want more of everything. I wanted more men. I had quite a few, too. When I was a young girl, there was a store called Weebles, and there was this good-looking guy in men's underwear. Now, he worked in men's underwear, and all the girls were attracted to this young man, and I said, "I will have him," and we got married shortly after. Can you imagine getting married like that? Oh, of course you can. He was good looking. We divorced shortly after he came back from Vietnam. He acted a little different when he came back from Vietnam. And while he was gone, I had to find someone to keep me company. And that's the way I was. I really had absolutely no regard for rules or for vows or for promises. I just had to do the best I could with what I had. After we got divorced, I left out a very important thing. We had a baby girl. The last time I told my story, I left out a whole marriage. You lose track after a while. We had a beautiful baby girl, and she was 9 months old when he came home from overseas, and I had matching dresses made for us. Oh, they were so cute. I was skinny back then, and they were a little sundress, and hers was matching, and we went to pick him up at the airport, and that night he told me that he had been living with some girl in Vietnam. That was about the end of that. But I didn't tell him who I'd been living with. I got married again for the second time, and I'll tell you the truth, I couldn't even tell you much about that fella. It was a very short marriage. I remember a couple of things about it. He said he couldn't have any children, and one day a policeman came to the door and said he was behind in his child support, and he had 4 children. I mean, my drinking, was getting. I know that this is a progressive disease because I didn't really drink that much when I was young. It just, as I look back, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was just like sometimes, and then it was just like weekends. And then at the very end, it was every single night. So anyway, that marriage that I really don't remember very well didn't last very long. And I'm going to tell you that my third marriage was the longest marriage. the preacher said, everybody who's been married 25 years, come up and surround this couple. And I said, does it have to be just to one man? Because I've been married more than 25 years, but not to the same man. And you know, I can't really tell you everything in 1 hour. But I know you know the feelings around lost, sad, not knowing what's going on in the world, just being so selfish and self-centered, you know, going out and buying curtains and cribs and pretty dresses, thinking everything's going to be okay this time. Sounds like I need it. But nothing ever was okay, really. Not just because of the drinking, but because of me. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know how to really be a mother, although I loved my little girl. Roger and I got married, and we were married 19 years. That was the longest marriage I've had. We had some good times. He was, I guess they say people who are married to drunks are sicker than the drunks are. I wouldn't be married to a drunk, I can tell you that. No way. He didn't really drink, though. But one night we went out drinking, and we came home, and I threw off my clothes and flipped my panties somewhere, and we climbed in the bed, and the next morning we woke up, and he said, he had this real bushy hair. It was back in the 80s, like an afro. He said, what is this? I looked over, and I said, it looks like a panty liner stuck to his head. I love that. We had some funny times. It wasn't too funny the night he had to come to the jail, though, and pick me up because I had a DUI. That wasn't very funny at all. It wasn't too funny when my little girl came and woke me up and said, Mommy, the Easter bunny didn't come. And there was a lot of sad times because of alcoholism. And all I wanted to do was to get married, have kids, and live in a little house, and just have a family. You know, I didn't have that myself. But this disease is stronger than anything. And this disease is stronger than love. This disease, it'll take everything away from you. Anyway, Roger and I were married 19 years, and there was a lot of fun times, and there was a lot of very sad times. Because I couldn't be faithful to anybody. If you don't give me what I want, I just go on to the next one, was my attitude. You're emotionally unavailable, I'm going to go talk to someone else. And I thought he would never leave me. 19 years, he put up with a lot of crap. And he told me he had a girlfriend. I was so pissed. I mean, really, isn't that alcoholic? I had been doing all these things all these years, and he was going to leave me. Well, I forgot to tell you we had a little girl too, didn't I? We had a little girl too. So I had 2 little girls, beautiful, beautiful children. But they grew up in a house with an alcoholic mother, and there have been some definite repercussions from that. My oldest daughter is very loving and respectful to me, but whenever we have a big argument, which we've only really had 2 that I can remember, a lot of stuff comes out. Stuff from 30 years ago. Did I tell you I'd been sober 15 years? I've been sober 15 years. So anyway, she brought up a lot of stuff that happened a very long time ago. And I was just crushed Because, when I got sober, I just thought everything was going to be all right. I didn't think they were going to talk about all that stuff. But I told her that I'd write my name on all those problems, but she'd have to write her name on the solutions. Because you can't unboil an egg. And I think since she's had children of her own, she seems to be a little more understanding, but I've had time to make amends in this program. Okay, so we got divorced, and my drinking, whenever I'm alone, my drinking really gets bad, really gets real bad. And it really elevated to a terrible level. It elevated to a level of missing work, waking up with all kinds of bruises, having very strange people in my apartment, and isolating really bad, and really wanting to die. I'm sure several people know that feeling. Because I was 45 years old. I'd gone through 3 husbands. My children were disgusted with me. And my youngest daughter had a baby, and she said I couldn't babysit. I'm like, what? It's funny how arrogant I can be, because I don't look at the real picture. So I decided maybe I could get some help. And I reached up in the cubicle of my little office, my little cubicle office, and I got the yellow pages down, and I called up this place and asked them if maybe I could come over and talk to them. So I went over and I talked to them, and they said, yes, I think you're an alcoholic, and I think we can help you. I said, okay, great. So I went home and I got drunk. Well, it was going to be my last night to drink. And I got drunk, and then I went over to that treatment facility. It was an outpatient treatment facility. And I started that next day. That night was the last night I drank. That was March 2nd, 1994. I was so ready. There wasn't any fight to it. I surrendered. Like I said, I can't. All the other details. A lot of tears, a lot of men, a lot of crap. But I surrendered. I surrendered to the fact that I was an alcoholic, and I went to that outpatient treatment place for 6 weeks, and every night they took us to an AA meeting. That was part of the thing. And I just kept going and going and going because I was afraid not to. I didn't know what people did at night. I didn't watch TV. I didn't eat dinner. And I certainly didn't have any friends. So I just kept going. By the way, I was going to tell you, I found out something about my mother on the internet. Well, first of all, my uncle told me that there was something in the paper about her dying. So I called the Cook County morgue, that's in Chicago, Illinois, and they said yes, a lady had identified her body. And I called this lady up and I said, I know you're going to think this is a strange phone call, but I got your name and number from the Cook County morgue, and they said that you identified the body of Doris Tauber. And I was wondering if you would talk to me. And she said, is this Peggy or Sherry? Oh, my God. And so my mother had talked to her about me and my sister. And it turns out she did not leave us. She took us with her. And my father and his family came and kidnapped us back. And do you know, it was just last week that I was fooling around on the internet. You can find anything on the internet. I found her death certificate. And it said, well, I knew that she had been stabbed to death. She lived in the ghettos in Chicago. And this guy was calling me, telling me that they were at the neighborhood bar and he couldn't get her. He could get her to come home if they were just drinking beer. But once she started drinking rum, he couldn't get her to come home. Well, at that age that I was at that time, I didn't realize what that really meant. I figured she had a problem with drinking, but I didn't know I did at that time. On her death certificate, it said murdered, stabbed in the abdomen, and then it named the vena cava or something, some aortic, I don't know, it must have been in her chest. But the third thing on that death certificate was cirrhosis of the liver. And she was only 41 years old. So I guess this disease is hereditary. I don't know. The older I get and the more I've investigated and seeked answers, and the more you people talk to me about acceptance, I hope with all my heart that I can run into that little lady someday and I can talk to her and I can tell her I understand. I understand totally. You know what it must have been like to have a baby at 17. She probably needed attention too. I hope that we'll get to talk and I can give her a big hug. And I love people around her age, and I never really realized why. I mean, I've had a lot of mothers in my life. Everybody I lived with said, you can call me Mom. But it just didn't come, it just was hard to say Mom. You know, it wasn't really until I got with you women that I really could understand that mother feeling. You know, that love that I never felt before, that I always wanted, that I was looking for. Where's that girl that was singing earlier? Looking for love in all the wrong places. So anyway, I did go to that treatment program. And I was out of treatment see, that was 6 weeks. I was almost finished with that treatment program when I ran into this little fella. And he asked me, did I want to go out? And I said, you know what? Because I met him when I was drinking. I said, I'm not drinking anymore, so I don't think that'd work. He said, oh, good. I want to quit drinking too. So I was very, very young, and 40 days. And I said, oh, great. We'll get sober together. So I was supposed to go pick him up at the place he was staying. And when I got there, there was a garbage bag and a cardboard box and a note. It said, Michael Davis is in the drunk tank. And I thought, well, how could he do that? We're supposed to start our life together today. And I thought, I wonder if I should go pick him up. Well, I'll just go over there and see what's going on. So I brought that little fella home with me. He was so cute. And we did get sober together. The only thing was, he didn't need AA. He just didn't need it. He said, I could tell him everything that was going on and I could be his AA. So anyway, he had a broken down truck, no license, nothing. He had nothing, that garbage bag and that cardboard box. But I had more fun with him. I told him we were in bed one night watching TV, eating tacos. I said, I have had more fun with you than I've had in Maui, in Bermuda. Of course, I was drinking then. I gave him all the credit. We were just happy as two little pigs in a pen. And he built up this little business, and I was going to AA, and everything was rocking along really good. And about the 6th year of our marriage, I came home one night, and he was acting very strange. I thought he had had a stroke. His speech was all slurred. And I've never really been around drugs. You'd think being from the big city, I would have been around drugs, but I really haven't been. I've only been around alcohol. And he was taking some kind of pain pills that he loved. And it wasn't long after that where he started drinking again, too. It broke my heart. He was so talented and so funny. And one night, he was sitting at the kitchen table with a gun, and we had to call the police, and I had to leave my home because I was scared of him. It was shortly after that. That's why I say I could never live with a drunk. When he started drinking again and was bringing booze in the house, I had to leave. I was too scared. I saw that little guy laying in a casket 2 years after that. He'd overdosed on drugs and alcohol. Whew. He came over one night before that, and he said, "I know you hate me. I know you hate me. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I said, "You got that right. But I don't hate you. I hate this disease. I hate this disease. This disease has taken away so many people, so many good people." But anyway, I hadn't really been out with any men. Can you believe it? I've had men, usually more than one, in my life at all times since I was a teenager. I haven't had any men in my life for like the last 9 years. I decided my sponsor said maybe I should work on being a good mother and a good grandmother and a good worker. I have the best job I've ever had in my life, and I'm the receptionist. I thought I'd be laying on one of these beaches eating bonbons by now, But I'm a receptionist, and I know how to be of service today, and I know how to be right sized today, and I know how to do what I'm being paid to do there. Usually when I worked at places, I thought I was smarter than everybody, and I didn't have to really do anything. I always felt like the world owed me something because I had such a terrible life. When I got to AA, I really still thought that alcohol was the problem, and those people and those situations were my problem. I had absolutely no idea that I was the problem and that I had a part in all of those things. And it took me a while to figure that out, too. Believe me, it didn't happen right in the beginning. The first 2 or 3 years I went to AA, and I'm not suggesting this for anybody in this room if you're new, I didn't need a sponsor. I didn't need to work the steps. I just needed not to drink because I felt pretty good not drinking. I really did. People thought I had a facelift. I was looking good. But then I started getting uncomfortable in meetings because people were talking about the steps and they were talking about their sponsors. So I decided I better get busy and start working these steps and start working with the sponsor. And unbelievable things have happened to me. Well, just like I told you, I hope I can meet my mother someday. Do you think I would have said that a while back? I do things today that I've never done in my life. I couldn't even really hug you when I first got here. I definitely couldn't talk about all the men I'd been with. I mean, I had this outside protection. They say you're only as sick as your secrets. There's been a lot of things, a lot of things that have been uncomfortable that have happened. But, I heard a lot of women sharing today, and I hear a lot of women sharing all the time about stuff that goes on in life, on life's terms. But, I was just too immature to handle it before. Couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle any of it. But you women have taught me how to handle things, and I've found a higher power. I remember as a little girl looking out the window saying, if there's really a God, make that star fall. Come on, just give me something. Just give me something. Stars fall all the time now. I got goosebumps. I don't know. I don't really know how. I've been joking about being nervous about standing up here because that old feeling, I guess, that old inferior complex. But what I do know is this: my life has changed because I've been willing to listen and to open up and to share what's been going on and to try something different. It's just that simple. I'm a little slow, but I finally got it. Like I said, I haven't really been with any men, but last year I looked up an old boyfriend just to see what he was doing. I mean, after all, 9 years, girls, woo. So I looked him up and we started talking and we started emailing, and he came down to Atlanta. And the thing I really, really grabbed onto was the fact that he remembered everything about our relationship. I remembered nothing. All I remembered was I met him at a resort in Wisconsin. He was Italian, good-looking, playing an instrument, and a good kisser. That's all I remembered. Anyway, we started emailing and talking and so forth, and I ignored all the little red flags as usual because I was hanging on to someone from the past. I don't have hardly anybody from the past. My mother's gone. My father's gone. My grandmother, she was a wonderful person. She's gone. She was number one on my resentment list. You know why? Because she didn't take care of me. I couldn't figure out why that woman didn't grab us up and take care of us. She told me it was because my father wanted to handle things on his own. And I went to a therapist and she said, your grandmother was a weak woman. You think I'd let my grandchildren go to a stranger's home? Ooh. But see, I know now that all these things that have happened so I can know what I want and what I don't want, what I will do and what I won't do. I didn't know who I was when I got here, and I think it was so God could make me the person I'm supposed to be. I'm not there yet, but you know what? I feel like I'm a phenomenal woman today. I really do, because I made a decision to put down that shit. You're probably not supposed to swear here, right? Sorry. 6 months ago, I decided to put down another addiction, cigarettes. Ooh, and I love to smoke. And I know, no. I know this is not about cigarettes, but it's just an example of what you can do when you surrender and when you have, a higher power who can help you. And I put down men. I mean, all those years I was sleeping with y'all's husbands. And then when I was single and I could sleep with anybody, I didn't sleep with nobody. That doesn't even make sense. But I realized that my higher power and you women gave me the feeling I've always been looking for. I didn't need to drink. I didn't need to be with men. I felt, okay. I felt okay. Anyway, this old boyfriend that I hooked up with, I went to New York to visit him. And this is after a year of talking and being together a few times, and I think he had a little problem. So I said, you know, you can go to the doctor. I think they have medicine for that. So when I got there this time, he said, I went to the doctor. And I was like, whoa, 9 years, I was ready. And I went in the kitchen, and he was cutting. Oh, he said, those pills, she gave me a prescription for 6 pills, and they're $20 each. So I only bought 2. I'm like, I'm going to be here for a week. And then I went in the kitchen, and he was cutting one in half. It didn't work. I said, take the other half. It didn't work. So I guess I'm not supposed to have sex yet. Never had that problem when I was younger. And see, these are the things I don't know about 60-year-old men. So anyway, he said we could be friends. I said I didn't need any more friends. Oh, Lordy. I don't know. My children, my 2 daughters, are wonderful, wonderful women. My youngest daughter has 3 children, and one by her husband and her. They both had one when they got together. And my oldest daughter, she had a baby. She got pregnant, and at 7 months pregnant, they noticed, well, I think they noticed this before the 7th month, that the baby had a terrible, terrible defect. Something wasn't between the tummy and the chest, and all the little organs float up and choke out the lungs. So that little baby was going to be very, very sick. But she didn't make it. 7 months they had to take that baby, and he didn't live. And my daughter, she was the caretaker. You know, we all have caretakers. She took care of me. When I drove her to college, she wrote me a card and said, I'm going to miss you so much. Who's going to take care of you, Mother? And that's sad. She took care of me. She drove me to the bar and picked me up. She had to drag me out. But you know what? They won't see a death certificate that says cirrhosis of the liver, hopefully. And they're going to know me, especially the last 15 years, because I've been the most loving mother I can possibly be. And the most honest mother. I mean, we've had some times, we've had some talks, and we've all cried. But we've had a good relationship especially this last 5 years. Anyway, she got pregnant again, and she had a beautiful baby boy, and now she's pregnant again with twins. God is so good. I wish they'd tell me now I couldn't babysit. I mean, between the 2 of them, who's got time for sex? I'm babysitting all the time. I'm with my grandchildren a lot. And my grandmother was a very loving and kind woman. She didn't take care of us, but she was a kind, loving woman. And I just want to be half the grandmother she was. And my oldest grandchild was 9 months old when I got sober. She'll be 16 this summer. So none of them have seen me drunk. Thank God. This program, oh God, as I look at you women, and I've already talked to a bunch of you, every woman in here is like a little story, you know. I've got my little story, you've got your little story. It makes us phenomenal women. We had to drink every drink we drank. We had to do every man we did. I love talking about my sex life because, I have to remind myself what a little, well, I better not say that. I've never been taped before. I better watch it. But you know what I mean? I have to remind myself who I was. But it's just miracles. Every time we have a birthday meet, I'm a sponsor. I have a sponsor. I go to 3 or 4 meetings a week. For a very long time, I didn't do anything in AA except go to meetings. And I realized that wasn't right. I needed to get into service work. And I have had so much fun. I was a GSR for the first time at 13 years sober. But that's okay. That's okay. I didn't do it like everybody else does it, but I sure don't want to start over, I can tell you that. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love women's retreats. Women's retreats is really where I think I started to recover. I really do. Because I remember the first retreat I went to, and y'all, everybody was standing in a circle holding hands, and I could feel like this electricity. I thought, well, what's going on with me? It was just like so spiritual. I thought every woman in this room is in the same boat I am. This is awesome. I don't know how to end this except thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And I think I might come back next year, not as a speaker, but just like I am, one of you. Thank you.